It started on a Thursday morning. Lagos was its usual self, gritty, hot, and alive with the kind of chaos that keeps you moving, whether you want to or not. I was sipping stale Lipton tea when the knock came. 2 short, impatient raps. I knew immediately. Landlords in Nigeria had a way of communicating with their knuckles before their mouths. I opened the door and saw the caretaker, Musa, holding a white envelope as if it were contagious. No greetings. No eye contact. Just the envelope shoved forward like a curse. "You have until month end," he mumbled and walked off. I stared at the eviction notice. Rent overdue for 6 months. I had been expecting it, but hope is a cruel seductress. You keep thinking something will change until it doesn't. My teaching job had been cut to half pay since the pandemic, and Mama's medical bills drained whatever little I had saved. I had asked my brother, Remy, just once, for help. He told me times were hard for everyone. Yet just 2 weeks ago, he uploaded a video to our family WhatsApp group, grinning in front of his new duplex in Lekki. "God has been faithful," he had captioned it. I hadn't commented. I didn't trust myself to be kind. Now here I was, sitting in my one-room apartment in Iketan, staring at crumbling paint and an eviction letter. I had no plan, no savings, and no options. That night, the ceiling fan clanked as if mocking me in rhythm. Sleep stayed far away. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I visited my mother's grave. She was buried just outside our hometown in Abeokuta. The trip was dusty and long, but I needed clarity. I sat by her tombstone, ran my fingers over her name, and whispered the confusion weighing on my heart. I begged her spirit to guide me. Then, as I stood to leave, a memory flickered, vivid and unexpected. It was Remy, 12 years ago. We were boys then, living with our mother in a 2-room flat. She had been strict, never sparing the cane, but she was fair. She taught us to share, to speak the truth, to never take what wasn't ours. That day, Remy had returned from school with a new phone. He said a classmate gave it to him. Mama didn't believe it. She beat him and made him return it. "Better to have nothing than to have what's not yours," she'd said. Funny. That same Remy now drove a Benz and wore a Rolex. Something about his rise never sat right with me. When I got back to Lagos, I stood in front of my door for a long time before entering. The room seemed smaller now, as if shame had shrunk the walls. I had only 10 days left. That evening, I got a call from my old friend, Tanji. He was working as a photographer now, covering events and weddings. "Guy, I see your brother in Banana Island." "Oh," he said. "Housewarming party. Big boys everywhere." I beat down the bitterness rising in my throat. "Yeah. He just moved." "No be small move, oh. That place no like mansion." "You sure say Remy never join cult?" I laughed, but it sounded dry. That night, something shifted in me. Not rage. Not envy. Something colder. Calculated. I was tired of being the good son, the quiet one. I didn't know what I would do yet, but I knew I wouldn't leave empty-handed. I began visiting Remy's place under the pretense of reconnection. At first, he was surprised to see me. Then, perhaps guilt tugged at him, and he welcomed me with fake smiles and too loud laughter. His house was surreal, polished floors, chandeliers, imported curtains. Everything smelled of money. But what caught my attention most was his private study. It was locked. Every time I visited, he'd steer me away from it. Once, I tried to open it when he was in the kitchen. It was electronically secured with a thumbprint scanner. That confirmed it, whatever was behind that door wasn't normal. One afternoon, he stepped out to pick a delivery, and his iPad buzzed with a message: "Drop-off complete. Gold bars received." Awaiting pickup on the mainland. My skin prickled. Gold bars. That night, I dreamt of Mama again. She didn't speak. Just stared at me, disappointed. The next day, I returned to Remy's house with a plan. I arrived late, just as he was about to step out. I brought a bottle of wine and played the concerned brother role. Told him I needed advice, that I was thinking of starting a business. He seemed flattered. I offered him a drink while pretending to sip mine. What he didn't know was that I had added a small dose of sleeping tablets to his glass, leftover from Mama's last prescription. Within an hour, he was out cold on the couch. I stood over him for a moment, heart thudding. I wasn't stealing, I told myself. I was reclaiming. For every sleepless night. For every ignored call. For every lie he told while I starved. I pressed his thumb to the scanner. Click. The door opened with a smooth mechanical sound. Inside, it was darker than I expected. The curtains were drawn. Papers, safes, and something that looked like an altar sat in the corner. Candles half burnt. Symbols I didn't recognize scrolled across the walls. I didn't have time to decode all of it. I opened the nearest cabinet. Bundles of cash. Neatly packed. Labeled. In that moment, I realized my brother wasn't just lucky. He was connected to something dangerous. I grabbed a leather pouch that looked expensive, tucked it into my backpack, and left the house quietly. I didn't go home. I went to a small guest house near Ojodu Baga and paid for 3 nights in cash. My hands shook as I unzipped the pouch. Inside were 5 golden coins, the stack of foreign currencies, and a black notebook with names and dates. Names I recognized: government officials, actors, pastors. My breath caught. This wasn't just theft. This was evidence. But I had no intention of exposing anyone. Not yet. Instead, I sold one of the gold coins the next day through a shady contact Tanji introduced me to. The money was more than enough to get me a small apartment and clear my old debts. But something else had come with me from that house. At night, I started hearing whispers. At first, they were faint, like static. Then clearer. You took what wasn't yours. I began dreaming of shadows, of red eyes watching me from corners. Once, I saw Remy's face on the wall while brushing my teeth. Still, I refused to go back. I had left, but I had taken something with me. And whatever it was, it had followed. I tried to tell myself it was guilt. That the strange things happening to me were just manifestations of my conscience. But conscience doesn't flicker lights. It doesn't make your reflection move when you don't. It doesn't whisper your name in your mother's voice at 3 a.m. I moved into a small flat in Ogba. Modest but safe, or so I thought. The day I paid the agent, a crow landed on the window grill and stared at me. It didn't move for nearly 30 minutes. Not even when I clapped. Eventually, I threw a slipper at it and it flew off, but something in its gaze remained with me. The nights got heavier. Sleep became a punishment. I'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, hearing footsteps pacing around my room. But I lived alone. I checked the locks, changed the bulbs, even bought a Bible and placed it under my pillow like Mama used to do. Still, the dreams persisted. Always the same, a red room, a golden coin spinning on its own, and Remy's voice saying, asterisk, you should have asked. Asterisk. Then one night, I got a call from him. I almost dropped the phone when I saw his name. I hadn't spoken to him since the night I dragged him and took the pouch. He had called a few times, but I never answered. That night, I answered on the 3rd ring. Hello. My voice was barely a whisper. He sounded calm. Too calm. I know what you did, Eo. I said nothing. I don't want revenge, he continued. But you took something sacred. You stole from people, Remy. You deal in things even Satan would be scared of. A long pause. You don't understand the price. That notebook, it doesn't belong in your world. You think you walked away with money. But you walked away with a contract. The line went dead. For the next few days, everything around me changed. My neighbors avoided me. Stray dogs howled every time I walked by. A woman selling akara outside my gate stared at me one morning and muttered, "You carry shadow. Heavy one." I tried burning the notebook. It wouldn't burn. I soaked it in kerosene. Lit it twice. Each time, the flames carved around the pages without touching them. Not a single mark. That's when I knew this wasn't about money. I hadn't just stolen gold. I had stolen something binding. Something that demanded something in return. And I was running out of time. It took me a month to admit I was losing my mind. The shadows no longer waited for nightfall. They came during the day now, mirages at first, flickering shapes in the corners of my eyes, then bolder, clearer. I would find my furniture rearranged when I came home. Cold spots followed me like ghosts. My own face looked different in the mirror, older, drained, haunted. Remy's words echoed louder now, "You walked away with a contract." I dug out the black notebook from where I had hidden it under the mattress. The names glowed faintly under the bulb. I opened it again, hoping to understand what I couldn't before. This time, something strange happened. The pages flipped themselves to the back. There, written in tight script, was a phrase in Yoruba. Toba jibie ohan tiai kiseti, mabade alri. If you take what isn't yours, do not bring it home. I had brought it home. I needed help, but not from the police or a pastor. I went to see Mama Nene, an old woman my mother used to visit. Some called her Asia. Others called her mad. Her compound in Mushin was littered with calabashes and strange herbs. She looked at me once and hissed. "You carry heat on your head," she said. "And something older than the devil clinging to your back." I dropped to my knees. I didn't know what it was. I was desperate. She stared at me, eyes milky but sharp. "It is not too late. But it will cost you." "What must I do?" "Return it," she said simply. "But not to your brother. To the house. To the room. Before the next full moon. Or you will lose more than your mind." That night, I packed the notebook, the gold, and the remaining foreign bills into a sack. I didn't sleep. The house felt like a grave. At dawn, I took the first bus to Lekki and walked to Remy's compound. I didn't knock. The gate was open. So was the front door. I found him sitting in the living room, gaunt and hollow-eyed. "You came back," he said quietly. "I brought it," I replied. He nodded toward the study. "It's been waiting." I opened the door again. The room was darker now. The symbols on the wall glowed faintly. I walked to the altar and dropped the sack. The air grew heavier. A sudden cold swept over me. Something in the shadows shifted.